Welcome to the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, and welcome to the latest race meeting in the World GT Championship. We're here for our second Enduro race of the season after a thriller of a 90 minutes at Belle Isle, Detroit. It is now time to head to the high speeds of Monza for the second of the season, and after this, a week's break. Well, everybody, welcome to the iRacing Esports Network's coverage, or Apex Racing TV's coverage on the iRacing Esports Network. Hope those of you in the UK are enjoying your bank holiday. It has literally been a scorcher here. We're hoping that we're going to see similar high temperatures out on the track. And alongside me in the commentary box to cover it all is Sam Fitzpatrick. Sam, I hope your bank holiday's gone all right as well. And yeah, looking forward to this one.
Yes, I'm certainly much the redder for it.
Oh, definitely.
I have to say, as someone who is mightily pale-faced, I have suffered quite a bit, but no, glad to be back covering this series. And we have been, we've had a couple of terrific rounds. Zolder 2 weeks ago was really good, and also last week at Imola as well. We saw quite a lot of controversy. A few underdogs as well doing very well. Usually in these enduro races, we tend to have the cream rising to the top, and I assume that's going to happen again, but it could be a little bit of a lottery because the slipstream effect is so strong around here. Are these drivers going to be following in trains for the whole 90 minutes? It's certainly a possibility, and yeah, we are going to be in for some terrific race-long action up and down the field.
Yeah, I was at the cricket today. I was watching Lancashire get beat, in never-ending sunshine. But yeah, looking forward to this one. We're running through the championship standings in a moment, but first qualifying is taking place, and we will get the timing and scoring up for you in a moment, but yeah, that is the state of play first. Then after that we will be getting going for a 90-minute race, and then after that we will be going on to a 1 week break, which is incidentally while we're at the Sim Racing Expo, which is taking place this weekend, and then we'll be back to resume the series and carry on where we left off. So we're starting at Monza here today. Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, host of the Formula 1 the Italian Grand Prix, in a couple of weeks' time, in fact, because F1 is back in next week, this weekend, in fact, for the Belgian Grand Prix. And we're looking here right now at Matt Bunn, who's currently on a qualifying lap. Currently fastest is Keith Camilleri. He's done a 1:43.87 as we enter the final stages of the quali session. And then after that, it is Richard Gofenko in second, Ben Hackerson third, Michael Evdoka fourth, Christian Chalonneau in fifth, and Barry Baird, Laszlo Kotrox, Brandon Tabone, Brian Lockwood, Ben Gregory rounding out the top 10. And just looking at the times briefly, Sam, it is incredibly tight. So I think this is hopefully a sign of things to come as the evening progresses.
Yes, definitely, but in such a long race as this, qualifying pace is one thing, race pace is another, and I think some of these drivers, particularly Carl Janssen, starting in, or currently lining up in fourth place, always very strong in the race, and so maybe he'll be maybe the favourite for this event. Also in the championship as well, it's ever so close at the moment, especially when you take into account the drop weeks. These drivers across the 15 rounds, I believe, they get 2 drop weeks, and that has been applied to the standings. And so it is very close, literally the top 10 drivers separated by about 100 points. And when the leader's on 400 points, you can see how close it is, how many drivers are right in the mix for this championship. Also a little bit of to let you know, Mark Fletcher is driving with a bit of an injury today. He couldn't attend Imola last week. He was very ill. And I think he's kind of got a symptom of that here today, so expect him to maybe be struggling a little bit. I'm sure his teammates, though, are going to be very strong.
Checker flag coming out then. It is the end of the qualifying session, and after that we'll be getting on the grid and getting the short pace lap done, and then setting them away for just an hour and a half worth of racing here. If you're new to the World GT Championship, usually for the most part of the season we have 3 20-minute sprint races. Then after that we have and then on the occasional race meeting like this one, we have the 90-minute enduro races, which does throw up a different sort of running order. Some drivers are used to the or better suited to the quicker style of racing that is the sprint races. And then of course we've got the enduros as well. We have got the championship standings available to bring to you now as soon as they load. and we can run you through those as we head into the latest race meeting. Mark Fletcher leads the way, 26 points ahead of Christian Challoner. Then it's Michael Evdoka in third, just 1 point behind. And then it's Thibaut Gazalban, Keith Camilleri in fifth. Then it's Laszlo Kotrox in sixth. He's just 2 points behind Camilleri. And then it's Carl Janssen, Lewis Bibby, Brian Lockwood, joint eighth with Bibby. And then it's Richie Kafenku in 10th. We did see a few drivers have a few issues at Imola. Who could forget that free wide crash, Sam, going into the Villeneuve chicane? Still having flashbacks to that, I think. But with Monza, there isn't too many corners like that, but there are some pretty hard braking zones, and particularly the Rettifilio. If you get it wrong there, you could end up clattering into not just one but a few cars as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, lots of opportunity for instance around here, particularly between the second Lesmo and Ascari chicane. I remember seeing quite a humorous crash, I believe, in an endurance race as well, a 3-hour GT endurance race in the GT3 cars. And around parts of the circuit, the walls are very close, and you can have big accidents because you're running at such a high speed. And also Imola, was terrific. Of course, if you want to see a clip of that 3 wide into one corner, do check out the Apex Racing TV Facebook page, and also leave it a like as well. We super appreciate that. But yeah, that was quite an incredible moment. And we have seen issues on the start as well here. I remember last year, not sure if you were actually attending this round, Adam, but at Monza, but I think we saw maybe Ash Sutton have quite a big accident going into turn 1, got speared off pretty much as the green flag went. And so when you've got 40 odd cars going down into turn 1, it can be very easy to just tap your driver, and then of course at that speed you're going to go penetrating the wall.
Yeah, I must say I can't remember that one, but yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Let's run you through the grid then. For the one and only race, the 90-minute Enduro race at Monza, Keith Camilleri starts on the pole, Richard Kafenku, the Romanian, starting in second. Then it's Ben Hackerson in third with Carl Janssen in fourth. Good opportunity to get some points back in the title race there for Janssen. There is still plenty of time though. Then it's Brian Lockwood in P5. Sixth on the grid is Michael Evdoka. Then it's Brandon Tabone, Christian Challoner, Laszlo Kotrox, the Hungarian, in 9th, and 10th Barry Baird. 11th for Christian Rose, and 12th is Billy Fletcher. 13th on the grid is Miguel Freitas, then the first of the Pro-Am drivers in Ben Gregory. And it's his fellow Pro-Am driver in Simon Underhill in 15th, Lewis Bibby 16th, then Ross McFarlane, Steve Baxter, Pete Howard in P19, and Dave Baker in 20th. 21st place for Nicholas Helm, then Ben Palmer, Mark Fletcher, championship leader down there in 23rd. Then 24th for Rich Warmingham, 25th for Daniel Kraft. He's only 1 second away from the pole time, which shows just how close it was here in the field. Then after that, it is Pete Newman in 26th, 27th Matt Bunn, 28th Chris Wood, 29th is Mark Woodhouse, and 30th Sharon Kaiser. Ethan Bass in 31st, Mike Gray in 32nd, and it's Danny Henney, Michael Blake, Jake Blackwell in 35th, Ashley Blake Hood in 36th, and that is how the rest of the grid lines up, Sam.
Yes, bumper field once again. It's absolutely terrific that we continue to have such a huge grid. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see every single overtake in this race because there are going to be quite a few of them. Just a bit of a reminder, I don't think we really mentioned this at Bell, but it's significant in this race. Half the points are distributed, I believe it's half the points, are distributed at half stage in this race. So 45 minutes, whoever's leading after 45 minutes, will get the first bouts of points. And then you also get an extra bouts of points as well after the 90 minutes as well. So just a little bit of a caveat there. Keep that in mind. You want to be in the lead or as far up the field as possible at the halfway stage. It does limit the drivers a little bit in terms of strategy. They can't pit super early, but otherwise they'll score barely any points in the race in the first points gifting. But yeah, you want to be as far as up the front as you possibly can all through the race if you manage.
What a great moment this is for KC Racing, locking out the front row, and they've got Brandon Tabone in 7th as well. So a great opportunity for these guys to get a potential victory. The Ferrari, as we have come to expect at Monza, is looking pretty good. It is all about the straight line speed, and the Ferrari has that in great quantity. We'll see what the BMWs can do. The highest BMW is Carl Janssen in 4th. It's going to be a slipstream fest here as we get ready for the World GT Championship at Monza. Keith Camilleri accelerates away from the field. The safety car comes into the pits. They're pretty much in single file for the first 5. The green lights are on and we are racing here at Monza for 90 minutes in the World GT Championship, and already Keith Camilleri has got a relatively comfortable advantage. He should be able to go into the front, into the Rettifilo without being challenged at all. It's going to be Richard Gafencu though that takes second place. He splits the KC Racing cars, and watch out for Michael Evdoka. He's gained 2 spots already. Try to go wheel to wheel with Michael Evdoka. Quite a few cars have crashed apparently. I think that's them just getting on the anchors for the first chicane. But a fantastic duel going on here already in the fight for fourth between Janssen, Evdoka and Brian Lockwood going into the Della Roggia. It's going to be the Ferrari that comes out on top surely. Janssen's going to stick it to him though. Oh! And goes on 2 wheels and gets hit by Brian Lockwood, Sam.
Yes, Lockwood drops a couple of places. That could be significant. Janssen trying to hang it around the outside, and we see that quite a bit in sim racing and in real life, but just took too much of that curve and really did force out the pit-side driver there by quite a long way. So yeah, just a little bit of contact, hopefully not too much contact, and he should be very strong to the end of the race. But unlucky there for Brian Lockwood because he was just watching that from afar.
Start of Keith Camilleri's dreams here. He's got half a second in hand over Ben Hackerson. We will see when we come around to complete the opening lap just how big the slipstream is around here, and see how much of that gap gets eaten into as the whole field, as you can see them there cycling onto the back straight. Come into the Parabolica for the first time to complete the final lap. Brian Lockwood's already getting positions back. Here he is getting up the inside of Laszlo Kotrox. The Porsche obviously will be a straight line speed disadvantage here, and Laszlo Kotrox still doing an okay job. He's already gained 1 place since the lights went green. He's got his teammate Christian Schallner right behind him, but as the field comes across the line to complete the opening lap, it's Camilleri, Hackerson, Gafencu, Evdoka, Janssen, Tabone, Lockwood, Kotrox, Schallner and Christian Rose rounding out the top 10 as Lewis Bibby appears to be on the move going into the first chicane.
Yep, straight past his teammate there, Ben Gregory. So BMW getting past Ferrari there. Gregory down a couple of places from his start. Also, Evdoka's got ahead of Gafencu, who I think has got a bit of an issue down the order, and that's a slowdown. He must have cut the first apex. The curbs are quite significant around here, but the first corner, that first part of the first chicane, is it has got quite a small curb, so very easy to pick up a slowdown on lap 2. That costs you a lot of time. So thank you then drops down into 8th place from running in 3rd.
Remember when Sebastian Vettel won here in 2008 in the Toro Rosso? Both he and Sebastian Bourdais qualified really high up the grid, and while Vettel was having all the glory at the front, Sebastian Bourdais stalled at the start and his race kind of unravelled from there. But Keith Camilleri in the KC Racing Esports cars had a fantastic start. He's got a 4/10 of a second lead. Richard Gafencu here seems to be the Sebastian Bourdais here, if you kind of liken that analogy. And he is currently in 8th place, 6 positions off where he started, and is currently under pressure for Christian Schallner. Is this just KC Racing using the slipstream to their advantage in qualifying and being able to get both cars setting good times, or is it just pure misfortune on Richard Gafencu's part, or is it a bit of a combination of both?
I think maybe a combination of both. To be fair, Gafencu lost that position, that 2nd place, right at the start, didn't he? Lost it going into turn 1, which you can't do too much about. Not too much down to pace. And yeah, just a little bit of a slowdown on the last lap. Here comes Tabone and Lockwood. Lockwood looks to the inside. Really good straight line speed there for Tabone, I think. But Lockwood does make that move. So he lost 2 places a couple of laps ago on the opening lap when he got a little bit shuffled out by Janssen. But since then, he's been able to recover back up to the tail of those drivers. Here we are again, Gafencu trying to get 1 place back on Kotrox, who's already gained a place in this race. He's also got his teammate Christian Schallner right on his tail. Radicals Online versus KC Racing. Down the inside goes the Porsche. Is there going to be contact? There is going to be contact, and he doesn't want another slowdown, Richard Gafencu. And it really is Sebastian Bourdais all over. And boy, if you wanted a metaphor for his career, well, here it is. And car number 44 round, and that's a lot of damage as well. Really unfortunate for Gafencu because he's had a miserable start with a few incidents. I don't think any of them were his fault.
And that's bunched up things a little bit because Barry Bear, the Nomad Sim Racing white Porsche, which I think was Christian Rose in the CQR Club car, which I think was the Porsche that collided with Gafencu, is now under immense pressure from pretty much the entire field. There's a Ferrari flying up the inside. That's great. Oh no! Teammates have taken each other out. That's the last thing we wanted to see. It's Barry Baird in a Nomad Sim Racing white car trying to get him on the timing. There he is. And the 922 car has got going again. We didn't see what totally happened, but I think we're going to see it in a second. Here it is. Oh. Ah. So it looked like that Barry's teammate was trying to get through Underhill, and then he ended up missing it and sliding into his teammate there. Here we go. He's on board with Barry. There we go. Not much you can see from his vantage point. What about Underhill? Here he goes, up the inside, hits the Porsche, locks up the brakes. You can hear the revs die at that point. And yeah, the two make contacts. And Sam, that's not what you want, especially in a race at this length, 90 minutes.
Absolutely not, and they may well be on the same Discord or TeamSpeak at the moment, so a few choice words may be applied. Unfortunate for those guys, certainly do not want to do that, especially so early in the event. Here comes Nicholas Helm, he's having a good run, he's up 10 places. It's Nicholas Helm, absolutely superb. And also dropping down the field is Lewis Bibby, I think that was. He was ahead of Gregory a couple of laps ago, we saw him overtake Gregory, but he's way back in the field now, maybe just getting caught up in that Baird incident before, and now Helm got a big gaggle of cars behind him, and the frustrating thing for Nicholas is that he hasn't got anyone to draft off. So he's got all these drivers behind him waiting to get past, and he's just a little bit out of range of Ben Gregory up the road. He'll need to close that gap nice and quickly so he can get a draft soon.
Plenty of battles already in this race, and we're only 6 minutes into it, going into the Variante Ascari again. It is very close in the fight for the final spot on the podium in the early stages. Michael Evdoka and the Ferrari using the slipstream well and driving well to keep Carl Janssen at bay, the number one, the reigning champion. Coming out of the final corner we go. Let's see how this BMW does with a bit of a tow. Gap you can see on the right hand side, it's about 1.5 tenths. He's closing, then it just about peaks at that point. And if anything, Evdoka gains a bit of time before they get into the first chicane.
Yeah, he might be fuel saving a little bit, Janssen. We saw a terrific Euro V8 Supercar Series battle earlier on, a couple of weeks ago, where the drivers in the first 90% of the race were just lifting and coasting. Maybe that's what Janssen is doing at the moment, side by side with Vivos. Oh, it's Underhill's off again. And that's a lot of damage now for Simon Underhill. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to continue. The driver who made contact with his teammate earlier on, and yeah, that's a blown engine, so that's pretty much going to be him stuck in the pits for the rest of the day. And he was one of the front runners as well in the Pro-Am standings earlier on. He's far away from that now. Oh
my word. Matt Bunn might have something to answer for there. Let's have a look at it one more time from the helicopter. So Underhill's in the middle of the circuit, maybe just over to the left, and then when Matt Bunn moves to the right, it's too late. And if he's going to do that in the next 24-hour go-karting race, I'm definitely staring clear, making sure that I'm not in the car when he is. So he has to go around back to the pits. Lap 5 then we are on of the race. And last time around, it was fractionally quicker Ben Hackerson than Keith Camilleri, but my mind does go back to an interview we did with Chaz Draycott after Imola last week, where he said there are going to be plenty of mind games in this race, as Sam alluded to a lap ago, in terms of the fuel strategy. And many of them, they're going to be too much for our tiny minds to imagine. Probably, as Ben Palmer goes into battle with Miguel Freitas. That was Freitas going up the inside of him into the Parabolica. And now the two BMWs are going to go at it down the front straight. One drives for Sim Sports Racing USA, one drives for Team Mad. And the Sim Sports Racing USA number 2 BMW is able to power back ahead again. Next up is Pete Harrington's CQR GT car.
Yeah, and I've got a CQR livery on Ben Palmer because I am unprofessional and forget to download the paint pack. So I don't know if he's got any ties to maybe CQR, so these two might be a little bit gentlemanly towards one another. Pete Howard, of course, running in 15th place, Ben Palmer in 16th. And that as well for Palmer down the front straight really did help him. It's strange to see Freitas moving down the order a little bit. He's down 4 places despite quite a few incidents up ahead of him. don't know if he's maybe got an issue or maybe picked up a couple of slowdowns, but not the race he wanted. Rose has got ahead of Helm, I believe, yeah. Go ahead of Helm, and they're still a little bit detached from Ben Gregory in 9th place, but they are just catching him a little bit, and every time you gain a 10th, that slipstream just becomes a little bit easier to grab hold of, and then you gain another 10th, and it's just a snowball effect. I must say, if we had some snow in the UK right now, that would be much appreciated, and as well in Italy, I imagine. But no, well, we can dream. Sorry, I'll just have a moment to dream about snow.
Yeah, we are in we're not too far away from a mountain range here. I'm trying to remember which one it is. I think it is the Alps here in Italy. Up the inside goes Nicholas Helm. Trying to reach the summit of the field here as he goes by Christian Rose. Rose goes wide. He's already crashed on this lap apparently, according to the event viewer. Now onto the front straight. This is going to allow Steve Baxter in the V-Racer car to maybe take 1 or 2 places away here. The Ferrari is going to try and power its way past the Porsche. But now the Porsche's trying to pick up the toe of the Ferrari. The Nomad Sim Racing white car moves across to try and block both of their attempts to get by. Baxter is alongside and nearly through. He's going to surely use the Ferrari's power on the exit to get by. And indeed he does. Now it's going to be up to Lewis Bibby in the TechSense car to try and get by too, going through a Curva Grande.
Yeah, gets that slipstream from the car ahead. And Bibby should be clear going into the braking zone. Of course, if you're on the outside here, you are putting a lot of faith into the driver on the inside because they can just spear you off. As anyone who's ever driven around this circuit on sim racing will know. A little bit of a sideways moment for one of the CQR cars as well, just in the background there. I think that may have been, or even Ben Palmer potentially, or Pete Howard. But yeah, Bibby currently running in 12th place. Still at the front at least, still quite separated. Also, there's a massive gap, by the way, between the two Radicals Online drivers. Challoner and Kotchuk's running 7th and 8th. They've got 7 seconds between them at the moment. So a massive divide between the top 8 and everyone else. Sorry, the top 7 and everyone else. So I think there's going to be kind of 2 different races today.
I was just going to see if there was an explanation for it, but Christian Rose at this point was already quite a way behind, and the reason for him losing the place was because he took the Nico Rosberg line through the first chicane and got back out again in 13th place. There you go, losing the position to Lewis Bibby. So that was Ben Gregory at the time. He's now lost a few positions since then, and now Baxter is under pressure from the BMW coming across the line. And it looks like Nicholas Helm at the same time, there you go, is about to lose a place, or trying to gain a place from Ben Gregory, and indeed he does. So 2 overtakes happening at the same time going into the Rettifilo.
Yep, and now Gregory needs to make sure they try to stay in the slipstream of Helm. That'll certainly help him, and yeah, we'll maybe be able to drag him away from his teammate in Coke. Because there are quite a few drivers, and of course for the Pro-Am win as well. At the moment, we've got Ben Gregory actually leading the way, and he's quite a long way ahead of the next Pro-Am. In fact, the next Pro-Am, at least from what I see, is Chris Wood. He's all the way down in 21st position, so some 10 places between the two of them. I don't quite know what's happened to all the Pro-Ams today, because it's usually mega competitive at the front there, and Gregory is only about 5th place in that championship.
Yeah, it's relatively evenly matched in the Pro-Am fight. But if we can look at that now, let's have a look at. Here we go. This is Ben Gregory, and we can filter by just the Pro-Am class, so we can see how just that category is doing. There you go. It's Gregory leading the way. Then it's Chris Wood for Team Mad in second. I am doubtful about that. I know in the BSRTC he's a pro. But as for the World GT Championship, not too sure. Then in third, it is Danny Henney. Then it's Woodhouse, and then Blackhall, and then Bass in sixth. So that is the state of play in the Pro-Am category. As in the overall fight, Gregory is now trying to take 9th place away from Helm over the line, and Christian Rose is trying to get some positions back, starting with the former Club Series champion in the Kia, Pete Howard. And it's an emotional moment, or emotional week for the Kia, Sam. It's the final week before it's set to be usurped by the arrival of the new Audi TCR car.
Absolutely, and safe to say, that will be the last time a lot of the drivers ever step into it. Maybe some of them will have a tear in their eye, some of them will have tears of joy, I must say, because that car is a little bit outdated, but of course great for iRacing to bring in the new Audi RS3 TCR car, a proper touring car which we've been asking for a while, and certainly do check out iRacing site for all the videos on that, and also the iRacing YouTube channel as well for the trailer. And Danny Henney off the circuit, car number 24, and look at that, he loses what, 6 places all in one. I might even lose another one to a Team Mad driver just behind. So unfortunate there for Henny, and that's still going on in front of him, so I think he might be able to retaliate in the next couple of corners.
God, this is a titanic duel, and as you can see from the graphic, it's for 23rd place. Blackhall, then Woodhouse in that red Team Mad car, then it's the Brittech Simsport car driven by Bass, and then it's Warmingham, and then Barry Baird, who's down the order after the wreck at this very corner. Oh my word, how the bit did Bass hold on to that? He's somehow managed to, and now he's really under pressure from Rich Warmingham here in the XVR Sim Racing car. A lot of BMWs in this fight, as you can see from the timing tower. 4 of them all embroiled in this battle. And watch out for the Nomad Sim Racing Black. Oh, it's not him. It's the Simmortal Smile Time car driven by Michael Blake. He's right on the tail end of this and is trying to get a spot here onto the front straight.
Yeah, unfortunately, almost too good an exit from the Parabolica meant that he didn't have the slipstream with the damage that he seems to be suffering from. Just loses that momentum. But it's constantly overtaking. If you're not being overtaken, then you are pretty much overtaking. Around the outside there goes the 24. And alongside Henny gets shoved out again. These BMWs, they build them strong, no doubt, but when you're racing against about 4 of them, you haven't really got much of an advantage. Al's in the lead. It's really closed up. Dotko thought was getting quite detached from the top 2, but actually the top 2's pace must have just dropped down maybe a little bit. To be fair, Dotko and Janssen have been very quick, throwing Lockwood as well in 3rd, 4th and 5th, and then being able to close that gap. And now that they're in the slipstream, it's pretty easy to stay in line with one another. And no doubt it's Camilleri who's got the worst of the deal at the moment, because he's got no slipstream whatsoever. He's saving no fuel. He's having to use his tyres just to set the pace. And yeah, I'm sure he will not be enjoying that at the moment. But at the same time, it is probably the most secure place, because a mistake when you're running in 2nd place can all of a sudden ruin your chances.
It's a forecast scrap now, because Carl Janssen has joined on to the tail end. Can he get by the Ferrari in front of him? He's really closing up on Evdoka, but as you can see, he lifts and coasts going into the first chicane. Just behind us, Laszlo Kotrox isn't doing any of that. I think he's just got by Christian Challoner. He had a healthy advantage by the time they got to the chicane, so not too sure what have happened to cause this. Running on board with the Hungarian in the Radicals Online Turn Racing car. His teammate is in front of us. Are we going to see any brake lights? Are we going to be seeing any signalling to go by? Looks pretty orchestrated to me. Meanwhile, one thing that wasn't orchestrated is this crash here for Mike Gray that I think we're about to see. The Ferrari isn't looking too good at this moment in time. On the brakes he goes, clips the grass, goes for a spin across the middle of the field. That is very shades of Hakkinen in 98 here, and that's where Alonso spun in 2004, and Vettel last year. Does a bit of a J turn, I think that still qualifies. Maybe a capital J, and then a swish at the end, and gets going now. Instead, he's only in 32nd, but he's where he started though, so he hasn't lost anything in that regard as we rejoin the battle at the front.
Yep, all these guys seem quite content with where they are, because they do want to get to the front by the end of the 45 minutes, like I was saying earlier on. Half the points are distributed at half stage in this race. The rest of them are distributed right at the end of the day. And so you don't want to hang about too much. You can't think all about the strategy. You do want to eventually get to the front. But at the moment, seeing that we've still got another 25 minutes or so until they have to get to the front, they are quite patient. As I say that, Carl Janssen now going for a move for the podium on Michael Evdoka. Backs out of it though. I think that was a genuine thought, but he didn't go through with it. He realised that the risk would be far too much, and there's really no advantage at this point.
No, indeed not. once we get to the pit stops, we might see a bit more of what these guys have in their hand in terms of their cards to try and win this race. And now we're almost getting to the point where it's a 5-car train because everybody's too scared to overtake each other. If Keith Camilleri had his teammate to hand, or a teammate to hand, he might have been able to have orchestrated it at the front so that he's not having to pull everyone around, giving them a tow, and he might have been able to pick up a bit of slipstream and save some fuel himself. Because right now that is what he's doing. He is acting as the locomotive at the front, towing around all these very happy carriages around this very high-speed rail network that is Monza, going into Ascari. And it's a Ferrari 1, 2, 3 with BMW 4 and 5, Porsche in 7th and 8th, and they're the lowest manufacturer in the field at the moment. So I think a few of the drivers in the Porsche knew that this might not be the race racing for them, and these lots still won't stop battling. It's Richard Warmingham, it's Mark Woodhouse, Ethan Bass, and Barry Baird still duking it out over 24th place. If this was any other race meeting, we'd probably say this could be a crucial fight for the reverse grid. And instead, it's just a fight for a position outside the top 20.
Yes, and they're now 7 seconds behind Jake Blackwell as well. I doubt that they're much slower than Blackwell. They're just fighting constantly and really embroiling themselves in this fight. So one Porsche seemingly out of all those guys, as Chalanet is trying to get past his teammate right there with the Radicals Online turn racing drivers. But Warmingham just cannot break the draft at the moment, and neither can Woodhouse. And when we go down this next straight, they all close right in on one another. I know Richard Warmingham, always a very stable driver, very rarely gets caught up in incidents, maybe a little bit passive, which I do, I'm a bit harsh on, I must say, about him, because I do mention it quite a bit. But he very rarely kind of makes contact with other drivers. Right now, he just needs a little bit of a turn of speed. Just open that gap up to 0.8 of a second and then drop the others. That's not going to help though. A slide going into turn 1, and all of a sudden, the small gap that he had forged has evaporated, and he's got Mark Woodhouse right on his tail in the Team Mad car.
As the track is now is enclosed in shade. Change to second place as well. Maybe we'll have a look at that in a moment. Ben Hackerson is dropping down the order. Oh, there's been a crash, and that's what's happened. It's Carl Janssen who spun. So too was Ben Hackerson. Just as we were looking for that fight outside the top 20, it's kicked off at the front of the field. Carl Janssen was involved in one of the wrecks in race 1 at Imola. And now he's collided with somebody at the front. Let's see what happened then. Into the Ascari. Hackerson already sideways. Nearly takes out the Texense Fit sidecar, then hits the guy, clobbers the inside curb and collides with Janssen, who had really nowhere to go in that situation. Janssen gets going with relative ease, only drops down to 7th place. Hackerson does a spin turn in the end, gets going in 8th. And wow, what drama there, Sam. Let's have a look at it once again.
Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't quite. Actually, no, I can now see what happened. And yeah, Hackerson just a bit offline, and yeah, into Janssen slightly. Shame for Hackerson there, because he seemed to really be cruising. He looked absolutely terrific. He was in the best position possible, second place, comfortably in the tow, and then just makes a strange mistake like that, and it cost him dearly. And all of a sudden, it's, well, is it a 3-horse race perhaps for the race win? Brandon Tabone gets promoted up to 4th place, but all of a sudden, Camilleri and Evdoka as well, they've got to up their pace, because if they are quick, they might be able to stay ahead of Hackerson and Janssen to the end, as Hackerson as he had another off. And this is the second time then that a driver from 2nd place has had a mare and is out of the race.
That is not Ben Hackerson. This is Ben Hackerson. Into the... Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Vitali Petrov, Malaysia. That takes him back to.
So bails out. Oh! Much injury to the car and probably to his lower back, I reckon. Yes, shattered pelvis springs to mind, I reckon. One driver that isn't worried about that is Keith Camilleri, who continues to lead. 0.8 of a second advantage over Michael Evdoka now. So some breathing space at last. And those cards that we were talking about, that the drivers were probably keeping close to their chest before this all kicked off, have now been thrown up in the air. Because Lockwood is now in third. Brandon Tabone, there he is in fourth place in the KC Racing Esports car. He might be able to act as a wingman for his teammate in a minute. We'll have to wait and see on that. Then it's Laszlo Kotrots, Christian Challoner, and a resurgent Carl Janssen, who's trying to get some of the positions back that he lost really through no fault of his own, as the BMW chases down the two Porsches.
Yeah, and this will be interesting to see what Janssen does. Will he just stick in behind, stay with the slipstream, or will he feel as though he has to go and catch up to the drivers ahead? I do think Janssen, he's usually the fastest driver in these races. Maybe Monza is such a Ferrari circuit that maybe he's not today. But I do think he probably has maybe a tenth of a second over these other guys. So if he can get ahead of these guys and put in some clean laps, might still be able to catch up to the guys ahead. But of course, at the same time, he could stay in the slipstream, have a mega long first stop, and that might bring him into contention when he has a bit of extra fuel at the end of this first stint. So it will be interesting to see what Carl does against these two.
Radicals Online Turn Racing are definitely playing by the safety in numbers tactic here. You can also see which drivers have got the best I rating, the best safety rating actually. No, that's what we're seeing there, I think. Oh no, is there I rating? Yeah, that we can see there. See who has got the best. Challoner in 6.6, Janssen 8.2. I think out of the top 10, that's out of the top 20. That's probably as best as we're going to see. But here they go across the front straight, then to start another lap. Kotrox is going to get passed by his teammate surely here, or are they going to lift? Hard to tell there as they go into the first corner. One thing I haven't noticed is that in this GT Porsche now, we do have the F1 style steering wheel. Used to think that with the Porsche it was the round one. That's just me driving the rough for all those years.
Good car, the rough. And COD still has its own series. I'm not sure how popular it is. I think it has a few splits per day. But yes, that wheel does look terrific, and of course all these iRacing iRacing cockpits are pretty awesome. They really do create them very faithfully, which is awesome to see. Every detail, of course, added, and these GT cars as well, very realistic. Of course, some of the best physics I think of any car in the entire sim. But yeah, it's really mixed up the order at the front then, at this stage in the race. And remember, we're about 17 minutes away from the first points being distributed. So that's kind of checker flag number 1. And then, of course, we have checker flag number 2 later on. Anyone who watches NASCAR, I believe they have the stages. I don't watch NASCAR too much, but that's where the inspiration was taken from. And it's maybe it's difficult to appreciate the points at the mid stage, but remember that is one. If you win at 45 minutes, that's 1.5 race victories from normal. I mean, it is a properly big deal, and at the moment it's very close as well for the lead. It's 0.2 of a second separating the top two. Evdoka just staying behind, certainly lifting and coasting there, I think. And if Evdoka even finished second place at the 45 minute mark, I think he'd temporarily move into the lead of the championship when you're taking into consideration the drop rounds at least. So a very good run of form for him in Italy. The Tifosi clearly helping him along in this Italian swing of the season.
Yeah, it is the Italian leg of our tour in the World GT Championship. Started it off at Imola last week, now at Monza here. And a 2-week break, and then we'll pick things up again as the championship continues all the way towards pretty much the end of the year, really. Watch it all here on the iRacing Esports Network. 8 o'clock, 8:15, I should say, BST. That's 9:15 in mainland Europe. Close battle here, Barry Bear versus Mark Woodhouse. I say battle, I think Mark Woodhouse may have either had a spin on the exit, or a half spin on the exit, or a slowdown penalty to serve, which may have explained his slow speed. Let's have a look and see what happens here. Mark Woodhouse, here we are, on board with the Team Ad car, turns in. That might have been all it needed. Maybe a slowdown to go with it as well. He did take a lot of the inside curve, but that's the reason why Barry Baird's, those are the reasons that could explain Barry Baird's escalation up into 24th position as Pete Harrod is dropping down the order. Something else happened on the exit of the Variante Ascari. Whatever it is, Harrod is just getting going now, leaving behind a plume of tyre smoke in his wake. Is everything pointing in the right direction? Looks like it. But the big question is what happened to cause it. Here we go. Into the Ascari we go. Everything fine. Oh!
Way too much curb. It's really difficult that though, because I mean, if you're not in these cars in particular, it's not easy flat through that final part of this Ascari chicane, and so if you're not cutting that as much as you possibly can, well, then of course you're making the corner so much kind of tighter for yourself. You've got to try to cut it off as much as possible. Good spin there though for Pete Harrod. These drivers do have traction control in these cars, I believe. And so I don't know if he quickly switched down the traction control there. Maybe he's got a button on his steering wheel and spun it round straight away. But no, that was very efficient. Unfortunately, he was running up in 14th place and was in that really nice battle for kind of the top 9 positions or so. It's separated a little bit now, but he was certainly having a nice battle. And now he's a bit by himself, 2.7 seconds behind Dan Kraft. And 8 seconds ahead of Richard Wormium, who I can announce has dropped the drivers behind. So Richard Wormium will be feeling a lot better about himself now. He's dropped that slipstream to the drivers behind, and well, might mean that the rest of his race is a bit boring, but at least he's doing well in 23rd place.
An update for you, and as you can see, Carl Janssen has managed to breach the Radicals Online Radicals Online Turn Racing buffer here. I wonder if I'll see any of them at the Sim Expo this weekend. Then I'll have to apologise for them to them for that. Here goes Janssen up the inside into the Parabolica. The Swede gets it done, and he did that a lap ago. And now, next up on the list is Laszlo Kotrox, just a bit behind these guys as they now enter the shot. Lewis Bibby is right on the back of Nicholas Helm, with Ross McFarlane just 1.2 seconds away. Ferrari versus BMW here. And if we go back even further down the front straight, Christian Rose and Mark Fletcher are just half a second apart, or just under half a second apart. So a few battles going on here. And you're all right, just over 10 minutes now until we dish out the first points of the day. I do occasionally watch the NASCAR, watch the Daytona 500. Then I'd probably see Talladega, the 2 road course races at Sonoma, or I should say the 3 now, shouldn't I? At Sonoma, the Glen and the Charlotte Roval, and maybe the Daytona race, the Pepsi 400, or whatever it's called now in July, and then maybe the one at the end of the season. Big supporter of William Byron. Oh, no, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I was about to say there are a lot of them, so it would be difficult to watch every single one. It's like 36, isn't it? Which to me, as a Formula 1 fan, is totally alien. And I personally have 16 races, back to the good old days of 16 races. Finished it in Suzuka, of course. But no, yeah, it's a bit alien. But yeah, week after week, tough attrition. No doubt about that. But no, it's a good format used by the organisers, and I don't know any other league that uses quite this format. And it does reward you for having a good half of the race. You imagine if you're leading for the entire race until the last 5 minutes, and then you crash out, you must be a little bit gutted. I realise that it's motorsport, but at least this system does make it a little bit more fair, certainly. Camillo looking like he is going to get a nice bout of points at the midway stage of this event.
Yeah, I think
they're now 8 seconds ahead of Brian Lockwood. Sorry.
That's all right. I was going to say, I think Santino Ferrucci would have liked it if this format was in the IndyCar series. If you don't want to know what happened at Gateway at the weekend, you might want to switch off now. But come back because there is still lots of this race to go. But yeah, what happened there was he led a good over 100 laps there and didn't end up winning the race. In fact, him and Joseph Newgarden had a bit of a crash, which led to a few afters after the race, which could prove pretty interesting when the series heads to Portland this weekend. Only 2 races to go in the IndyCar series, by the way. So if you do like short seasons, Sam.
Yes, 12 races, isn't it?
Yeah, finishes in September. I think mainly is this is down to my superstition. I think it finishes early just because the American football season starts. So everybody's attention's going to be on that, as opposed to the IndyCar, as this fight for 8th is really heating up.
Yes, and yeah, I do really need to get into IndyCar. And also, hopefully, I assume we'll add those few IndyCar tracks that we don't have. Because some of them are properly unique, kind of semi-street circuits, of course. Not got all the ovals, but just liking a couple of the road courses, a bit like Portland, and I think a couple of the others as well. But I've got all the IMSA circuits, which is very good. Nix's helm, yeah, absolutely deep in this battle. Lewis Bibby's managed to get to the top of this train. I was saying earlier how we kind of got 2 different races today, the top 8 and everyone else. And there is still an 8-second gap between 7th and 8th places. Bibby at the head of this kind of race number 2, if you will. Side by side with Helm and McFarlane, who we haven't really chatted about too much, but he's always been there or thereabouts as well, McFarlane. Up 7 places from his starting position, and now he's going to get the slipstream. I think he's going to be McFarlane hit just because Bibby will be unconsciously aware that he's really helping the V-Racer driver out. To the outside goes Helm. This is going to be brave. Putting so much confidence on the driver on the inside, almost comes across a little bit there, Helm. And in the end, sorry, it almost comes across as McFarlane, and in the end, Helm gets ahead. So a little bit of a tangent, but I saw a poll earlier on another series that we cover, and it is remarkable how many people use 3 screens now. 3 screens or VR. I think it was something like 80% of them use one of those 2 rather than a single monitor. Which kind of shows in those situations the drivers are that much better than they would have been a few years ago, because if you're on a single screen and your field of view isn't very large, you have no clue where the driver is alongside you, apart from maybe your sound and your spot sight.
Yeah, when I was at the Sim Racing Expo last year, they were really trying to promote the world of curved monitors. I've got one here in front of me. I haven't used it in a sim yet, though, apart from obviously to the broadcasts as Ross McFarlane tries to get past Nicholas Helm into Parabolica from quite some way back. Nearly caught the Nomad Sim Racing white car unawares. I'm not sure if you're allowed to do that, but they do it anyway as they cut across the white line over the timing line and then back onto the front straight. I know a few series I know will really frown upon that, but either way, into the first corner. McFarlane gets past Helm. Oh no, Baxter hits him and then spins out himself and then gets going again, but he hasn't lost any positions. What were we talking about just before that? Oh yeah, monitors. Yeah, haven't had a go with the curves monitor yet in the sim for an actual race myself, but yeah, it might be interesting, because the last time I ever did a race on iRacing it was just with a single monitor, and field of view was at a premium, probably why I crashed into everybody. And I think if I returned to the BSRTC I'd still have a few back of the grid penalties to serve.
I mean, if you were commentating at the same time, it could be excused you struggling slightly on the circuit. I mean, we've never tried that ApexRacingTV, but certainly a bit of potential. Guarantee that can't happen in real life. Kotchok's holding up. So yeah, these still very much with one another. Maybe Janssen sticking behind. They are catching up to Brandon Tabone just ahead. You can see Tabone now only 1 second ahead. Quite inevitable that they'll catch up. Brian Lockwood as well, just a little bit confused what's happened to Lockwood's pace, because he was looking mega fast earlier on. He was in 5th place, closing in on the top 4. He got to within about 2 seconds of the race lead. And I don't know if he's maybe had a slide and overheated the tyres, but he's just been dropping back constantly ever since then. And all of a sudden now we've got a relatively close battle between 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th and 7th as well. All closing in on one another. We've also got a really good battle as well between Christian Rose, Mark Fletcher, Dave Baker and Billy Fletcher. Those drivers running between 14th and 18th places. All very close between those guys.
Here is one of those battles then. Yeah, Rose, Fletcher, Baker, Freitas and Wood. Not very close indeed over the line. 5 minutes to go until those points get dished out. Should say it's getting close at the front again. It's just over half a second between Keith Camilleri and Michael Evdoka. Ferrari's pretty close. Here's that battle for 5th, 6th and 7th as well between Kottrotz, Janssen and Challoner. Maybe you don't rule out Brandon Tabone getting dragged into this. Of course, it's going to get to a point soon where the pit stops start to factor into the equation. That's going to make it pretty interesting for us and for you at home as well. There we go, 40 minutes, 5 to go. And then we'll get the points out.
And 90% fuel these drivers are limited to. So usually they'd get maybe an hour. This is a very high fuel consumption circuit, as you can imagine. So imagine maybe 55 minutes with the amount of tow that they've been having around this circuit. So it will only be about 10 minutes afterwards, and they've only got about maybe 5 minutes of leeway. So expect them all to come in relatively similar to one another. The undercut isn't going to be much of a factor, especially seeing that these drivers will not be changing tyres. Changing tyres costs you about 25 seconds. And you can certainly not afford that. You're not going to make that up in just half an hour. So everyone will be relatively the same in terms of strategy, which will mean they'll all be very close to one another when they come out of the hits. Ross McFarlane still hounding Lewis Bibby, and Nicholas Helm staying in touch. Also, Stephen Baxter trying to recover from that half spin he had a couple of laps ago. He's just 4th in this line.
BMW v Ferrari then through Curva Grande in a fight for 8th place. Let's see if McFarlane can get it done into the Della Roggia. Decides against it. The second chicane isn't the most easy place to get an overtake done. Can often lead to a bit of contact just because it narrows down so much on the exit. And these guys all doing a fantastic job so far. Nicholas Helm, who's the 3rd car in this picture, has gained 11 spots since the start. He is nearly the biggest mover in the field. That honour goes to Jake Blackwell, the CQR GT car. Here he is. Started in 35th spot, which was 2nd last. In fact, it pretty much was last because Ashley Blake hasn't taken the start. And he's gained 15 places since we got going here. So, granted, a number of them have come into the pits, but because of crashes and whatnot. But yeah, he's still got that at the moment. And Keith Camilleri and Michael
pick up a slowdown as well. So
yeah.
Sorry, I was just about to say, I think as we were talking about him, was a bit of a commentator's curse, almost a preemptive commentator's curse there. But he is catching up to the drivers ahead. But I mean, when you're by yourself like that, I've said before, you know, if you don't have a slipstream, I'm sure Michael Evdoka's probably gaining about half a second a lap just in the slipstream. So it's really difficult to make way by yourself. Not as bad, of course, if you're in a NASCAR race. But certainly around this circuit, it is really quite difficult for these drivers to manage that. And these guys still pulling away. Their pace is phenomenal out there, and their consistency as well. I don't think I've seen them do a lap time which hasn't been a 45.1 or a 45.2. It's been superb from Camilleri and Evdoka, and they're driving this just as they have to. Question is, will Evdoka go for a move as we approach the 45-minute mark? Will he care about those extra points, or will he be quite content with 2nd place and maybe go for the win after the 90 minutes?
You'd be surprised how desperate some of those NASCAR drivers were for the stage points. In some of the races I've seen anyway. I was watching them at Sonoma. And yeah, they were pretty desperate to get it done there. A few cars, as you can see, have come into the pits. Barry Baird has come in. So too has Pete Newman. 0.3 seconds stop for him there. Actually, no, he's just carried on. Lapping there, Mike Gray in the XVR Sim Racer car. When we come round to the line, we're going to be starting the lap that will include the 45th minute. Do the points get dished out precisely on the 45th minute, Sam? I'm guessing so. As opposed to them completing the lap.
It must be completing the lap, I would have thought. I mean, they could pause it, of course, at the 45-minute mark. I mean, we do commentate on this series. I guess we ought to know the points, but sorry, we ought to know the rules. But I think it's probably at the end of this lap. So, you know, imagine a checkered flag. Imagine the wave men. Sorry, the wave men. That's a new word for Marshall. Wave men. Oh dear. I mean, that's one of those surfing instructors. I think. I'm not quite sure. There you go. I'll put that on the Facebook page at some point. But no, the marshals, who are very enthusiastic on iRacing, imagine them throwing a checker flag in just a few moments' time. Evdoka, though, not really closing in. He's been half a second behind for many a minutes already, and he doesn't seem too interested. Camille, though, trying to break the draft, so maybe he realises how significant this is. Evdoka doesn't seem to be quite as interested.
Just having a scroll through the rule book now for you. We are on the 45th minute, so well done to Keith Camilleri and Michael Evdoka, top two in the pros, and Brian Lockwood in third. Top am is going to be Ben Gregory. He's got a comfortable advantage over Chris Wood, a comfortable sixth position advantage over Chris Wood. And yeah, top team Casey Racing Esports, which I'm sure they're going to be very, very happy with as they come out of the final corner. Now that Keith Camilleri's done that and ticked that box off, they can now start to worry about the pit stops. 90% fuel, as Sam alluded to earlier, and have got to make that last for 90 minutes. So we'll see what they can do with that one, as that's now out of the equation. Brian Lockwood, he's already blinked. He's coming into the pits. Undercut perhaps, or maybe just to get the fuel in. No need to worry about the tyres, I believe, as he comes trundling down the pit lane now. We'll see where Lockwood comes back out with the help of the track map. He's going to stop right behind that screen, isn't he? There we go, that helps. See how long this stop is. It'll give us a benchmark to see what everybody else's is going to be like.
It's very surprising, the fact that he decided to do that, Brian Lockwood, because maybe I think he's probably had very little toe, but I would have thought he'd be able to get further than 45 minutes in this race. We've also got another driver into the pits, Pete Harrod, who's had one spin earlier on in the race. But Lockwood, he might find that he drops quite a lot of time to the drivers who he was battling with. Remember, he was running in third position before, with quite a few drivers kind of queuing up behind him, Tabone and Chalaner and Janssen and a couple of others. And he may well lose his position to them, but maybe he knows something that we do not. And he will sail into the race lead. Not quite sure, but I mean, certainly he knows what he's doing. Must be the best strategy for his race. 27.1
seconds, is that to be expected at all, or was there some penalty that we might not have seen being added there?
I think that should be right.
Yeah.
They are adding lots of fuel, I think. So.
Oh yeah, they've done fuel it for 45 minutes or so. Now they've got to get through the other 45 minutes. Battle for 7th then, between Bibby, McFarlane, Helm and Baxter. It is also very close between Camilleri and Evdoka. Might have to cut to that actually. There it is. Into the rest of Filio again they come, and car 26 staying ahead of 989. What about Janssen? Over the line he goes. He's already got past one Radicals Online Turn racing car, and it looks like he's finally going to pull the pin and get by the other one into the first corner. The reigning champion gets it done. Ben Gregory, top pro-am, into the pit lane. So too Christian Rose, so too Chris Wood. Few cars in the top 20 coming in on this lap. It does mean that Jake Blackwell takes the lead in the Pro-Am category. You can see there Ben Gregory using his fast repair, gets the car all good and new. And we'll see how long those guys' stops take by the info at the bottom of your screen as we rejoin the fight for 7th as Bibby batters the BMW over the curbs. And the BMW looks like a car that might just be a bit more tolerable to the curbs than the others, Sam. Might that just be because of its insane size?
Yeah, it may well be due to that. Apparently it's very drivable as well. You can pretty much put on the same setup and go to any circuit, and you're quite safe. That it's going to exit the corners nicely, that it's going to be very stable. I know the Mercedes GT3 car, the Mercedes AMG GT3 has always been a little bit like that in that class. But no, the BMW's kind of taken that role, and that's why so many drivers use it, because it's so easy to get up and running. The Ferrari, meanwhile, a little bit more temperamental, I believe, and the Porsche as well, maybe in the middle of those cars. Unfortunately, no Fords out on the field, I believe. Certainly haven't seen any, even though it's a terrific car. As Evdoka goes for the lead, he leads this race for the first time. And he must, well, I guess that just means that they're coming in for pit stop soon, and he may as well get track position.
Indeed, yeah, for the first time, a KC racing car is not leading the race. I will have to come across the line first and confirm that for us, because obviously the lap charts don't do everything in real time. Bibby, Baxter, Palmer, Fletcher, Freitas and Blackhall all coming into the pits on this lap. So that fight for 7th has been broken up a little bit. It's now Ross McFarlane in 7th, Helm in 8th, Fletcher 9th, Mark Fletcher in 9th, and Dave Baker running out the top 10. I mean, oh, hello, Fletcher's missed his pit box, and that will cost him a bit of time, as he has to get the car repositioned in the box. A lot of cars taking fuel, as you can see on this lap. Even more coming in. Gafenku, Blackhall, Billy Fletcher there going, no guys, wait for me, please. As Bibby and Baxter now emerge ahead. Fletcher still hasn't got going. He's been in the pit box, finally gets going. And even though Bibby and Baxter were in the pit box for only for longer, technically, 29 and 30 seconds compared to Fletcher's 26, it was those extra 5 and 6 seconds to get the car in the pit box that cost him dear.
Yep. So disappointing for him there. And is Evdoka going to come into the pits? He is. So, you know, I clearly was wrong. I thought these drivers would be able to go a bit further, especially Evdoka, who's been in the slipstream for this entire race. And yet he's had to pit at the 50-minute mark. Really shows how marginal these drivers are with fuel. They've literally got, 5 minutes of leeway where they can pit. Evdoka's teammate, I think that was Ben Gregory, just pulling into the pits as well. So he's going to be ahead there. As long as they're close to one another, that's what we really want. As long as they're within a second of one another, they will inevitably close back in because of the draft. Janssen and Challener, by the way, had stayed out, so they've managed to save a lot of fuel. No surprise that Janssen's been able to do that, because BMW is always very strong with fuel, and Challener as well staying out. Now, Evdoka still stationary, usually about 25 seconds at his pit stall, and he is still ahead, but the gap barely changing whatsoever. I think we're going to have a race right to the checkered flag between these two drivers.
Carl Janssen, yeah, well, we need to see what he can do as well. Obviously, he wasn't near these two earlier, but we've seen in the past how good he can be with strategy, and he might be able to use that to get ahead. These guys are definitely ahead of Brian Lockwood, who is only just coming into the Rettifilio chicane now. So he is quite some way behind. In fact, if we look at the intervals, sorry, not the intervals, what was it, the gaps, you can see there, 37 seconds away Evdoka is from the leader, but it's about 13 seconds back to Lockwood in 7th. So that is a lot of time for Lockwood to try and make up in the remainder of the races. Here we are with Carl Janssen leading the way. Behind him is Richard Gafenku, who is a lap behind. And here's the reigning champion now going to dive into the pits. The answer to that is yes. Stop for the cone. Hopefully that was enough. You never know with these things. We'll wait and see, because if you speed on entry into the pit lane on iRacing, you do serve your penalty when you get into the pit box. So we'll see whether it is a conventional stop or not. And Dave Baker, who is in 3rd place right now, could be about to take the lead. Indeed he is, because he's not coming in. Christian Challener has. He was in 2nd place. He's coming to the pits too. And now we've got to play a waiting game, Sam, to see where Michael Evdoka is going to be. And he's going to come across the line now, I believe, to take the lead.
Yep, and Janssen's still stationary. He wants to come out in 3rd position, ideally. 24.8 second pit stop, so maybe a little bit faster than some of these other drivers. He's still got a while to go down the pit lane, as Janssen. Now he is out of the pit lane, and he should just be clear. We're on board with Brian Lockwood. Tabone is going to be close to Challener as well. And in fact, Challener is going to slot right in the middle of these two. Lockwood almost locks up the brakes. And he was running then in 3rd place was Brian Lockwood, but he's dropped all the way down into 7th now. So that early pit stop has really cost him. That just shows how important it is to save fuel in the first half of the race, and the fact that he's had to do a couple of extra, or he had to pit a couple of laps earlier than his rivals, has really let him down.
Yeah, what it was it was a similar lap, it was a similar stop to everybody else, the 27.12. But why was that? Why was the result of that him losing all those places?
I think it was just because he had to do there was a couple of laps where the other drivers had barely any fuel and he had lots of fuel. So it was kind of that classic overcuts from the other drivers. And I think those maybe couple of laps out of his pit box weren't particularly strong. Also maybe got caught up in some traffic. And I had no way to defend, of course, because he was on a different piece of tarmac. So yeah, unfortunate for Brian Lockwood. And Lasso Kotchuk's as well isn't too far behind.
Look at this then. Here comes Lockwood. He's getting set to work straight away. Trying to get by Challoner into the Parabolica. Up the inside he goes. Dave Baker has finally come into the pits. He might have just led the lap there. I think he did actually. Even though he did come into the pits. But as soon as Lockwood gets by, the Porsche might fancy his chances of getting back by again. One thing that, well, looking at this, the iRacing pit stop crew don't do is clean the front of your car, because that looks a right mess going into the first chicane. Right up to the rear end of the BMW goes the Porsche there of Christian Challoner, who's gained 2 spots since the start of the race over 55 minutes ago. And a close battle here between Mark Fletcher and Ben Palmer. Ferrari versus BMW. BMW moving about a bit in a straight line as Dave Baker rejoins just in front of us from his pit stop. 24.3 seconds, one of the quickest stops we've seen today. Quickest pit stop so far, I believe, is the 23-second stop done by Christian Challoner, who used that quick pit stop to his advantage because he was able to rejoin ahead of, well, he was ahead of Brian Lockwood, but since then the Racecraft Esports car has got by.
Yes, and I think he may have also got ahead of his teammate Lasso Kotchuk as well in that, so it did work out for him a little bit. Camille was super close to Avdoka going into the Sky chicane. I think it was less than a tenth of a second, so maybe Avdoka even having to defend. They might, well, we'll compare lap times. So I'm just thinking they might be able to just go, you know, hell for leather to the end of the race and just battle one another and don't care about the time that they lose one another. Because they're so far ahead of Carl Janssen, 10 seconds ahead of Janssen. But Janssen is a very quick driver, so they can't count on their laurels by any means. Camille, no interest in overtaking. Of course, at this point in the race, you don't really want to be saving fuel, because you put in enough fuel to get yourself to the end of the race, and so any fuel saving is just going to mean that you got more fuel at the end of the race. It's going to make you marginally slower, but certainly you may as well, you know, race as much as possible. But yeah, certainly lifting and coasting isn't going to help too much. Lockwood then getting ahead of Tabone, so he's made quick work of those two drivers. He's back up into 4th place. Lockwood was struggling a little bit earlier on. He was being caught, remember, by Tabone and Challoner earlier on, but since then, in this second stint, he's been absolutely lightning.
Yeah, I don't know whether Brian Lockwood's planning a Ben Stokes or something here, and and trying to steal a late victory from almost the jaws of complete impossibility. But we'll have to wait and see there. You can see what the lap times were like last time around. 45.6 for Avdoka, same 2 for Camilleri. Carl Janssen 2 tenths of a second quicker. If he goes at that rate, he will catch them in time, but it will take some time to get there. And oh, car off the track. He reverses out of the way. That's the blue car, so it'll almost certainly be Pete Newman. It is. He gets going again. The CQR PNM with Lizard not having the best of fun today. Let's have a look and see what happened. 58 car going into the Ascara chicane. This is where Pete Harrow crashed earlier. Is it a carbon copy? It literally is. Andy, wow.
Ooh.
My God. He managed to avoid taking nearly 2 Team Ad cars out of the race. Tell you what, Michael Blake's on board is going to be interesting for this. Maybe not his, actually. Jerome Kaiser's is going to be interesting for this. Oh, mummy, he says as he goes through the left-hander and has to get out of the gas.
I mean, I was saying that just watching it, to be honest. That was, I mean, give Kaiser a bonus point there. That was superb. He managed to get a little bit of oversteer just as he approached him, which managed to make his car almost slide on the grass. Really helped him just to take evasive action. very impressive car control. And, well, it's kept him in the race. He doesn't need any bonus points. It's kept him in the race with no damage. That should be a reward enough. Brandon to Bone. He's now battling with Chalamet. So these guys straight away losing 1.2 seconds to Brian Lockwood. Just ahead of them. Chalamet stays ahead. Oh, sorry, actually overtakes to Bone then. So Radicals Online versus KC Racing. Two of the top teams, of course, in this championship. That's so Kotchux is catching up to them a little bit, 2.6 seconds. And this is how close these guys are. They lost a lot of time with this kind of second bunch of cars earlier on in the race. But since then, they've actually been very rapid and haven't been losing much time whatsoever to the front runners. And now it's Nicholas Helm leading this pack ahead of Ross McFarlane and Lewis Bibby. And then it's Stephen Baxter in 11th. These four drivers have been pretty much glued to one another for the past 50 minutes or so.
Yeah, they're familiar faces, and you can see how close they are on the circuit. Helm has a second advantage, but he's still being classed as being in this battle. And then it's McFarlane, and 4 tenths per second behind him it's Bibby, and then another 4 tenths back to Baxter. Change for the lead, it's wheel to wheel down the front straight. Keith Camilleri has had enough of following Michael Avdoka, and the KC Racing Esports car returns to the race lead into the Resifilia. This is probably the last, not the last we've heard of this, and with Carl Janssen lapping half a second quicker than Michael Avdoka on the last lap, it might not be that this battle for the lead can include two cars for the remaining 29 minutes of this race. Strap yourselves in, because this is by nowhere any means done yet in terms of the race victory, as we return to this battle for 8th. In fact, there's a battle between the Fletchers. Billy Fletcher getting by Mark Fletcher. Oh! Then he nearly goes into the back of Ben Palmer, going into Retafilio chicane.
I remember Mark Fletcher, of course, the championship leader at the moment. I think today, certainly not himself, because he's had an injury. I don't think he's been able to practice too much, and he wasn't even meant to be doing this race, but really desperate to get out there. Otherwise, after missing Imola last week, he would have used up all his drop rounds, and that would not have looked, that would put a lot of pressure on him in the second half of the season. Remember, Fletcher, of course, dominated the first few races as well, but since his absence at Imola, he's, of course, yeah, really struggled, and it's opened up this championship massively. He's got his brother, Billy Fletcher, of course, with him, so those two should work together well, and they have been together for pretty much the entire day. The furthest up they can get probably is Dave Baker, who's 2.5 seconds up the road. There he is, just in the shots.
For the Ascari they go again, and Billy Fletcher looks like just as soon as he's got past his namesake, he wants to get past the Sim Sports Racing USA car. We'll keep an eye on the lap times at the front again. You can see that it is now under 9 seconds between Avdoka and Janssen, by the way, but this is the fight that we're looking at, the fight for 13th. Carl Janssen being shown as going off the track on that previous lap as well. Ben Palmer's not had the best exit, and now it's up to him to try and work out how he's going to keep his car at bay. I'd say he's got the right idea, but he's got to remain alongside, and he isn't as they go into the first corner. Is the other Fletcher going to try and fancy his chances? He has a little look up the inside, but no, he doesn't get by there into the Retafilio chicane. So Billy Fletcher, 2 laps, 2 overtakes. He's up to 13th. Dave Baker is next on the list. He's 2.2 seconds up the road.
Yeah, it's just closing in a little bit on these guys. Half a second faster than Mark Fletcher on that last lap. So watch out for the Portuguese driver, I believe Miguel is, just behind. Opened up a little bit out in the lead. Camille is now 1 second ahead of Avdoka, and maybe that's due to some traffic, not quite sure. But Avdoka doesn't want to drop any more than a second behind, otherwise you lose that toe, and it comes down into pure pace. I think Camille might just have an edge on that, and as we're speaking, yeah, just reaching that 1 second margin. So panic stations for Michael Avdoka. I say panic station, he's looking very good for second place, but if he wants to win this race, really does need to have a good lap or so. And of course these guys still very close, Helm and McFarlane. Not too much movement amongst these drivers, I think. They're all quite happy with where they are, but I'm sure it's going to erupt in the last 10 minutes or so in the race.
Now, this is not what Carl Janssen wants to see. It's Michael Blake in front of him, who is nearly a lap down. He's a lap down on the leaders, but he's not been officially lapped yet by Janssen. And you can see he's flashing the lights. What he may know, judging from if he has his relative open, is also that the leaders are coming up to some back markers too. They're coming up to Simon Underhill, I think they're coming to laps. So this is again another opportunity for Janssen to get some time back. He's at 8.4 seconds away from Michael Evdoka. Was quicker again on the previous lap, 0.2 of a second quicker, and he's put in a personal best in the first sector as well, at 35.07. So as these guys gradually work their way through the slow traffic, they've just started with the Team Mad BMW, sorry, the Simmortal BMW of Kaiser. Now they've got the Nomad Sim Racing Black of Underhill to get by. And this is another thing that we don't see in the sprint races, Sam. It's the ability to deal with traffic, and obviously at Belle Isle we saw that just because the track is so short. But here we have to see it at Monza too.
Yes, and Belle Isle was maybe a little bit more difficult. And of course, yeah, the fact that a lot of these drivers never really deal with. And of course, when they join this race, they get used to the reverse grid factor. But this traffic is very difficult. But Camille straight past. Docker, like I said, he doesn't want to get more than a second behind, and he's having to make quite a bold move there on the Team Mad car, almost going into the race leader. There is the 170 Nomad Sim Racing driver. That was Simon Underhill. In the end, it hasn't actually cost Camille too much. If anything, it maybe even helped him because just bogged down Docker a little bit. And now Kaiser sees an opportunity to get past Underhill. Needs to make sure that they don't outbreak themselves and go into the second place running Ferrari. And nipping ahead in the end is Jerome Kaiser.
Oh, this fight comes to a head. Nicholas Helm gets the move, repasses Ross McFarlane, who I think got by on the front straight, but has now since lost it again. McFarlane got a fantastic run through Curva Grande. Whoa, Helm moving over to the inside. Up into 6th gear we go as they head towards the Della Roggia. Who's going to break the latest? The Ferrari of McFarlane trying everything. Wow, I thought they were going to collide there on the apex of the second part of the chicane, but this is just going to allow it to bunch up even more now as Bibby and Baxter both fancy their chances of maybe creeping into the top 8 here as Nicholas Helm tries to get some sort of advantage as they go onto the back straight now. And Helm has a wiggle on the exit, and McFarlane puts 2 wheels into the dirt, which kind of negates the advantage he would have gained by that moment there for the Swede.
Yeah, certainly needs to stay patient though, does McFarlane. He needs to remember he's got plenty of time to get this done. They're 14 seconds now behind Laszlo Kotchuk, so they have been costing each other a little bit of time with this fighting, but they are pretty much by themselves, these 4. McFarlane wants to be at the head of this turn. Of course, like I said, no advantage saving fuel. It's not a consolation being in traffic like it was in the first half of the race. Now it's all about just going as fast as you possibly can. Getting very close as well between Chalanet and Tabone, by the way. I might have to cut to that in a bit. So they just say that. Cap's gone from 2/10 of a second to 6/10 of a second. But yeah, it is pretty close between those two drivers. That's the battle for 5th. Getting very close here though. Will anyone go for a move? McFarlane looks to the inside. That's bold. Into turn 1. Almost contact. Good space leaving there from Nicholas Helm. And just about had to back out of there did McFarlane. That could have really been both of their races heavily compromised if they had tangled there. And all of a sudden now, just as we saw a few corners ago, McFarlane goes from attack to defence. And now he goes back to 10th place. As Lewis Bibby sweeps round the outside of him. No defence put up by McFarlane. And now it'll be Bibby who will have a go at overtaking Helm.
Great fight this. Almost can't take your eyes off it. By the way, it's been a... Oh wow, the gap has gone up to 9.5 seconds between Janssen and Evdoka, so it might have been a poor lap by Carl because it looked like he was going to be only 7 seconds away at one point, so something may have happened on this lap. Richard Kafenko, something has happened between him And Richard Warmingham. I think this is him here in the XVR Sim Racer car here. This is the first corner. Gafenku, let's not forget, started on the front row. And just a little bit of something between them there as we rejoin the live pictures. And they're all still line astern in the fight for 8th going into Parabolica. Big BMW behind us. Straight over to the inside goes Helm. They don't go over the white line like we've seen a few cars do here. Whoa, bump draft nearly. Our camera very nearly got destroyed there as Bibby in the BMW is going to come up the inside and get it done. McFarlane catches him unawares. This is what he did a lap ago and lost the position because of it. He's got his teammate behind him now, and all of a sudden that's allowed Bibby to get 3/10 of a second as McFarlane tries and tries, but all in vain, to get this place off Nicholas Helm.
Yeah, every time he seems to go for a move, he just seems to be shoved off the circuit. Really disappointing for Ross McFarlane, but they are still in a 4. Wow, that was a lot of curves. Seemingly Helm's just struggling a little bit through the second part of that chicane, not very confident over the curves. That may well just be due to his setup. And Bibby edging away, 0.5 of a second, but that's not nearly enough to break the draft as we head on to the kind of 3 straights and only a couple of corners. It just really helps you to drag yourself a lot closer. Out in the lead, I don't want to call this race off. But Camille is looking very strong. He's 0.2 of a second ahead of Michael Abdoka at this point. He's just edged that out. Some really strong laps from Camille. He got to about 0.8 of a second. And then since then, it's just been a couple of tenths every single lap. On that last time, in fact, he pulled out by half a second. That might just be the final blow. However, a little bit of traffic perhaps for Keith Camille, and it could put up this race in the air once again, especially as we reach the last 5 minutes of this race, where the lapped drivers will not be particularly happy letting the leaders past. Side by side between Helm and McFarlane again. I mean, this is attempt number 4, I believe, that we've seen. Could have well been a lot of other attempts. I think this time, well, he's got the inside this time at least. But will he be shoved out? Definitely has more of his car alongside, and ahead goes Ross McFarlane. Helm will have to tuck back into the slipstream. Somehow the 3 of them don't all make contact. Bibby scampered off into the distance. It's a Nicholas Helm sandwich with B-Racer drivers as the bread. And Helm has to back out of it. Sorry to go on a bit of a rant, but I despise it when people say, oh look, it's a B-Racer sandwich. Well, you don't call it a bread sandwich, do you? You call it a ham sandwich. So it's a Nomad Sim Racing sandwich with B-Racer as the bread. Sorry, I just had to vent that.
Yeah, I don't think that's on the menu in Subway. Oh no, what's happened? Carl Janssen spun at the exit of Sky for the second time today, and that's killed off any chances of him finishing on the podium. Almost certainly. It looks like he might have collided with a back marker. Let's see how it all transpired. Oh, no, no. Well, he hits the curbs on the inside. Oh, wow. And he collected Jerome Kaiser and all that. Here it is again, this time from off-board. Hits the inside curbs there, they are lethal. Then he hits that inside curb, and Jerome Kaiser had already crashed by this point. I wonder why he would have done. I don't think in any way what he did has led to Janssen's demise. What's he going to do here? Oh, Wiggle of Death. At least he doesn't hit anything. Very unsynchronized crashing there by this immortal small time car and Carl Janssen. What this all does mean is that Brian Lockwood is back into the podium positions. Who would have thought that after his early pit stop? Christian Schallender's 4th, Brandon de Bone's 5th, Laszlo Kotrox is now in 6th, and now it's Carl Janssen down in 7th place after all that.
Yeah, and I think Janssen's got quite a bit of damage as well. If he goes nose forwards into the wall, and then just the nose takes all the impacts, it's not too bad. Of course, it is quite bad around this circuit because a bit of drag can heavily compromise you. but it's mainly that steering damage that he needs to be aware of. We'll look at his lap times. His sector 1 was about 0.3 of a second off. His sector 2 maybe 1/10 of a second off. Sector 3 a couple of tenths of a second off. So he is losing time, his Carl Janssen, no doubt about that. Maybe 0.8 of a second per lap. But Lewis Bibby might, he's 1.6 seconds behind at the moment with this entourage as well, all trying to catch up to Janssen. All of a sudden, from all battling for 8th place, 7th place has become available.
Yeah, now this is the fight for 9th. Or 8th, you could say, because Bibby might not be out of the woods totally yet. Now that Ross McFarlane has got past Nicholas Helm. Just a quarter of an hour to go then in this race meeting at Monza. We have now less than a sprint race to go in the World GT Championship. The Enduro race at Monza proving to be a delight to watch. And just getting the calendar up now for a quick reference for you so we can give you an update on where we're heading to as the season continues. We'll be back in a couple of weeks because it's a Sim Racing Expo next week. Then I believe it's week 13. And then we finally reconvene at Spa for 3 20-minute sprint races around there. That will be fun. Motegi in early October. Kota. And then on the 21st of October, we go to Silverstone. We're in America Bend on the 4th of November. Then Okayama in Japan. We return to the land of the rising sun. Then we go to the Glen on the 18th of November. And then we end the season with the penultimate round at Montreal in Canada. And then we go west to where the IndyCar Series is hosting its final race meeting of the season. We go to Laguna Seca to bring the curtain down on a mammoth Season 6 of the World GT Championship.
Yes, I've got the wrong calendar up. It was amended earlier on in the season.
Oh, no.
I'm sure you've got the correct one, Adam. I'm looking at the one on the website, but I think the one that you've got is correct, that they edited it a little bit. Just to fit in the week that Tines Janssen, dear, he's had to come into the pits. Of course, these drivers do get one fast repair, so the question is, did he use that fast repair? I assume, by the fact that he's come into the pits, that he didn't use the fast repair earlier on, but this is a long pit lane, one of the longest, or one of the biggest deficits that you lose. Oh, wow, he's got out of the car, I think.
Yeah.
That's Carl Janssen. It's not out of the race, is he? I mean, his pace was not atrocious. He may have still got a top 12, but there you go, Carl Janssen, who's had a tricky championship. A couple of times it seems to have kind of got going a little bit, but then quite suddenly gone spectacularly wrong. And once again, a frustrating day for him when I think he may have been the fastest driver out there, and certainly a podium at the checkered flag would have certainly been due.
Well, I was about to wax lyrical over... moment for Chris Wood. So he goes across the chicane. If Carl Janssen hadn't have used his fast repair on his pit stop, just to show that the drivers make sure they're prepared for any eventuality, but that's not the case for Carl. He's out of the car, out of the race. He does get the points for the 45 minutes that he did do, and he'll take them to Spa in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, that's the end of Carl Janssen's race. A shame, really. It could have been a stunning drive up to the front, considering he was facing the wrong way just a couple of laps in into the race when Ben Hackerson collided with him. Let's have a look at the cars that are out of the race. And Ashley Blake Hood didn't start. Matt Bunn slammed into the side of one of the Nomad Sim Racer cars, and he retired on the spot. Ben Hackerson out of the race after his crash with Janssen. Mike Gray out, Pete Newman out. We saw what happened to him. He had that spin on the exit of Ascari. Ethan Bass is still going. He's just been into the pits a few times. Michael Blake now in the pits. Not too sure why. Dave Baker into the pits. Now, he hasn't gone off. He has lost a few positions, though.
Oh, he did just use his fast pay. He had a bit of damage on that car. I don't know how he's managed to pick that up. Didn't look too bad on the Porsche. Maybe this is where it happened. He was running, I believe, in 14th place. Oh, well, has he...
Oh,
Maybe
really?
that's all the damage there is. I mean,
Yeah.
those curbs are big, and he's just hit them at the wrong angle and really ruined the car. I'm shocked that that's a meatball. I mean, and it must have been a meatball because you can always go to the end of the race with that much damage. Cost you a bit of time per lap. But no, that must be a meatball flag. Maybe a little bit of steering damage, not quite sure. And yeah, really unlucky for him. But, I mean, you can talk positively about these drivers. Some of them are prepared for the future and don't use their fast pair at the first stop.
Baker will be driving within himself, but with an element of let's see what I can get from the final 10 minutes. He is only 3 seconds away from Richard Warmingham, who's in 21st place, so might be able to get some points there. And of course, he's got his points in the first 45 minutes to fall back on. Laszlo Kotrox puts in a new personal best of the race of 45.05 as he carries on his way. He's in a bit of no man's land, really. 2.2 seconds away from Challoner, his teammate. 1.7 seconds away from Brandon Tabone in 7th. So for the final 10 minutes, he's really not got much to fight for unless the cars in front of him do make a mistake. Fight for 11th between Billy Fletcher and Ben Palmer. And just a little bit further down the road, it's a very close fight between Miguel Freitas and Christian Rose. Let's see if Rose can get that place back after having to cut the chicane a lap ago. He takes the right line this time, and he's into 14th place.
Yeah, it's not turned out too bad for Christian Rose after some earlier issues. Apparently got 3 stops for Mark Fletcher. I seriously doubt that's the case, but that's what my timing is saying. But no, I think he's just come into the pits one time. Oh, of course, full credit to Mark Fletcher out there. Remember, he is quite heavily injured, and he is still running in 13th place and gained 10 places from his start. So certainly a lot of admiration for that, and will keep himself in the championship as well, no doubt, with Kos Janssen struggling today, and a couple of the other championship drivers. Not sure if they're actually attending today, so I don't think anyone apart from, of course, Challoner and Doka are going to score absolutely massive amounts of points, and Lockwood's a little bit far behind, so not too bad for Fletcher today. Beats is trying to save out with Christian Rose. Remember, Rose finished 2nd place last season, and maybe it's just been a little bit overawed, I think, by the absolute pure pace of so many of these drivers. The strength and depth amongst the probably best 10 drivers is so strong. Christian Rose's normal just attrition, pounding out the top 10 results, it hasn't quite been good enough this season. But in the Endurance, I think he did well at Bellar, and he's doing decently well today as well.
Okay, even better for him here. Over the line, see if he can get 14th into the first corner. That Porsche has got the slipstream, it's got the speed, it's got the braking ability, the BMW I should say. And he's got the place clear before he even gets to the second part of the Rettifilio. So Freitas up into 14th. And even then he's been able to put 4/10 of a second ahead of Mark Fletcher. Here's our leader though, on completely the other side of the track. Puts in a new personal best, and I think a new fastest lap of the race as well. 1:44.71 for Keith Camilleri. And the laps are just over 100 seconds long, and with 6.5 minutes to go, there aren't going to be many more tours left for the KC Racing esports driver. Fight between Palmer and Fletcher. Looks like Fletcher has just been repassed. By Ben Palmer. So Palmer into 11th, 11 places gained. Billy Fletcher back down to 12th, where he started. Biggest mover in the field. We had an update on that earlier. It is quite a few. 12 places gained for Nicholas Helm and Chris Wood, and for Jake Blackhall. Here he is getting by Ben Gregory for 23rd place. Next car after that, Ben Palmer with 11 places gained. And then after that, a few cars have gained 10 places. And Mark Fletcher in the Radicals Online Motav cars gained 10 places as well. So a few cars have been on the move today.
Do we know how many pit stops Gregory has made? Because he was running quite high up earlier. And my screen's got him taking 4 pit stops. I doubt that is the real number of pit stops he's actually made. No, he was running really high up. And of course now, the top running Pro-Am driver is Chris Wood up in 16th place. Second place is still Gregory. So a few of these Pro-Am drivers struggling a little bit today. Next, Blackhall, Woodhouse, Underhill and Kaiser. Quite a few of them all together. In fact, it looks as though the only Pro-Am driver who isn't going to be lapped today is going to be Chris Wood. So it will be very good for his championship laps. Of course, the championship leader in that category is currently Chris Wood. So he would really extend that over Matt Bunn and Michael Blake, who have both had some issues today.
Gregory's done 2 stops, by the way.
Right, so that would explain why he's so far down. But he did win the 45-minute race, I think.
In the Pro-Am category, yes, you are right, yeah. Daniel Kraft has crashed, and Ethan Bass has come into the pits again here as we enter the closing stages. Before we see what happens to Dan Kraft, let's see the potential resolution of this fight. Maybe wait until Retafilio, I'd say, to Billy Fletcher. And I think he might have just heeded that advice coming through the final corner. Not that I'm giving advice to Billy Fletcher, I'm just trying to see what he might be doing. Onto the front straight then. Bit of wiggling by Palmer. That indicates a person who's light on fuel, but I say that, he is lifting and coasting into the first corner, and Fletcher does go by. If he's out of fuel, he's got to do a long lap, but he does have drive. He is short shifting as well, I noticed that.
Of course, the best thing for Palmer here is to stay in the slipstream of the car ahead. So, I mean, if Billy Fletcher wants to be really harsh, he would just stay behind and not give his rival a tow. But I'm sure he's a nice guy, and instead we'll probably drag him to the end of the race, get a little bit of a slipstream. Dan Kraft spinning.
Oh no. And yeah, collects Barry Baird with him. That was really unfortunate. Let's go on board with Barry for that. So you can see Dan Kraft is so far up the road at this point. Into the Della Roggia. Left. Right. He sees it sliding. Goes for the left. Wonder if his spotter told him to do that. And he's now coming to the pits. And that looks like it might be done for the day.
Because Baird did start in 10th place, I believe. Was doing well in the opening stages as well, wasn't he? Because he collided with his teammate, and if it weren't for that, he could have well been... I mean, he was fighting with Bibby and McFarlane and Helm at the time, so a day of what could have been.
2.5 minutes to go then. Penultimate lap here at Monza. I'm looking here at one of the few fights we've got remaining in the field. Ross McFarlane and Nicholas Helm half a second apart. Billy Fletcher and Ben Palmer remain about half a second between them. And here is one of the other fights in the field. It's Jake Blackhall versus Ben Gregory, who's trying to return some positions to his name after the 2 visits to the pits that he has done. His most recent visit to the pits, he was in there for 16 seconds. Came into the pits for an unscheduled stop earlier, and then I think he came into the pits for his actual scheduled stop after that, I think.
Few comments on the YouTube chat. Certainly appreciate your discussion. Realise we haven't been engaging with you guys too much, so apologies for that, but certainly thanks for tuning in. And of course some terrific viewing figures today, around 90. It's kind of just been going up in an endurance race. I mean, for it to be going up as the race has been going on, it's absolutely terrific. So thank you guys a lot. So of course, if you enjoy this, certainly check out, certainly subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network and check out the Apex Racing TV YouTube channel as well. But a few jokes being made about Multi-21 and team orders between the 2 Fletchers currently. They are 7 seconds between one another. So that would be some pretty big team orders in order to do that. And I also saw an interview with Mark Webber yesterday. Was tempted to ask him about that, and someone actually did have the guile to ask him about that. And yes, well, it was a good interview actually, very interesting. Carfest, if anyone else is there. Here we go. McFarlane having to defend from how this is what it comes down to then for the battle for 8th place. Final lap for these drivers. Yes, will be final lap because Camille is on his final lap currently. White flag is out. And Helm will do absolutely everything he can. But will still be a very good result for these two guys. A lot of points for getting in the top 10 in such a significant race. Looks to the inside again, does Helm. Side by side, McFarlane and Helm, and they spin round. Can they get back going? They're just costing each other a lot of time. Will Helm even go on his roof? And this is not the best way to do that. So now Helm, has he taken out another driver? I don't think so. Going through the middle and having to stand on the brakes as well. Chaos as Keith Camilleri comes to the line.
Yeah, chaos further around the lap, but jubilation for Keith Camilleri and KC Racing Esports. They win the endurance race here at Monza. Michael Evdoka is going to come across the line in his Ferrari to finish in second. And Brian Lockwood, what a drive by him to finish in third, despite a pit stop that left him with a lot to do. Christian Schallner finishes in fourth, Laszlo Kotrox in fifth. They're still at it here between Nicholas Helm and Ross McFarlane. It's now McFarlane ahead. Is the favour going to be repaid? They've got Ben Palmer. So no, it's Christian Rose closing down on them. Into the final corner they go. You can see the damage to the Ferrari, but it's going to be Ross McFarlane that finishes in 11th place. Ben Palmer's just overtaken Billy Fletcher on the line. Was Billy Fletcher out of fuel? We'll have to wait and see on that one. But Helm comes across the line in 12th behind McFarlane, Fletcher 13th. Miguel Freitas and Chris Wood, two teammates very close together. Richard Kafenku and Daniel Kraft are very close here. 18th and 19th. KC Racing Esports versus CQ Evolution. It's going to be Kafenku that heads home. Daniel Kraft, who finishes in 19th place. But a late race overtake just before the flag that saw Fletcher finish ahead. I'm just trying to find it on the thing for you.
Yes, so Billy Fletcher getting 10th place right at the end there. After not really being in the top 10, I think, for the entire 90 minutes, but just nicks that one right at the front.
Here it is. Running on board Ben Palmer. Fletcher. Oh! Well, that's the car we were wondering about with getting involved in that mess. He managed to just about avoid it, Palmer. Carries on his way. Oh, God, is this as quick as we can go? Play music over the top of this. Oh, yeah, you can see. You can visibly see it. I'm now trying to find Fletcher on the thing. He's already weaving about at this point. On board, here we go. This is into the revs. It's not too far away. Now he's going to accelerate to the line. Is he going to have any power?
No, I think that must have been deliberate. Letting the other driver pass. Certainly didn't sound like he was coughing.
No, it definitely did, and I'm just trying to work out why he would do that. Did they collide earlier? Who knows? But still, what a great race. The race is over. Let's bring up the finishing order. Keith Camilleri wins for KC Racing Esports. A fantastic job by the Maltese driver and for the team. Michael Evdoka finishing in second. The American Brian Lockwood finishes in third. Christian Schallner in fourth and Laszlo Kotrox in fifth. Sixth for Brandon Tabo, and then Lewis Bibby in seventh, and Steve Baxter in P8. Triple Eight, wouldn't have it any other way. Ben Palmer in ninth and Billy Fletcher in 10th. Ross McFarlane, the Scotsman, finishes in 11th. 12th for Nicholas Helm, then Mark Fletcher in 13th. 14th for Christian Rose, and then the cars that were over a minute behind. Miguel Freitas heads home Chris Wood, who wins the Pro-Am category today. Pete Harrod in 17th, then the Romanian Richard Gofencu, who started on the front row, finishing in 18th place. KC Racing Esports bookends the top 18. 19th for Daniel Kraft, 20th for Rich Warmingham. Dave Baker in 21st place. And then a lot of Pro-Ams. Jake Blackcall, Ben Gregory, Mark Woodhouse, Simon Underhill, Jerome Kaiser, Danny Henney, Ethan Bass, who made a few visits to the pits today. Then Barry Baird, Michael Blake, Carl Janssen, 8 laps down. A few crashes on the Variante Ascari, putting pay to his afternoon. Then Pete Newman, Mike Gray, Ben Hackerson, Matt Bunn, and then Ashley Blakehood not taking the start. The next Enduro race, good question. I think obviously it is some way away yet. Just trying to work out which one it is. I think I might need a different document for that one. But
I mean, on my schedule, it would be Spa, but Spa, according to your schedule, is the next round, I believe.
Yeah, I think there is one left anyway. I think we have 3 Enduros in the calendar, so I think there is one more left before the end of the campaign. Right. Do we have any interviews? We do. We have the American, Brian Lockwood, in the interview room. So we can drag him up for a quick chat. He finished on the podium today. A well-deserved podium, in fact, as well. Brian, welcome. An interesting race for you. Started at the end of the first stint, you're up in 3rd place. Then after the one round of stops that we had, you were down in 7th place. And then by the time the checker flag was out, you were back up to 3rd again. So an intriguing hour and a half for you.
Yeah, intriguing for sure. And that was one of the toughest races I've had lately. They've all been tough. It's just been one after another. But yeah, I think I started P5. And Michael in P6 had an awesome start. He jumped me, and I think he got Carl on lap 1. So I was just holding on to that 6th place. Something happened to one of the front runners early, so I moved up to 5th, and I was just doing everything I could for the first stint to hang on to the back of that field. They were all really, really fast. Carl, I don't know how he was making that BMW go so fast. The Ferraris I expected, but whew, that was really tough. And then, pit stops happened. I ended up back in 7th or 6th. Then made my way past Christian, made my way past who I forget if it was Laszlo or no, it was Brandon. Brandon I had to pass. And Carl was just really far away, so I was lucky for me, sucks for him that he had that incident late in the race, but I'm super happy with the podium for this one.
Yeah, why did you lose those places during the stop? Because I was having a look at the pit stop times, and they weren't shocking. In fact, they were quicker than some of the cars that were in front of you. But was it the fact that you came in a bit early that resulted in that?
I think so, and I was really getting run down by the cars behind me, which is why I came in a little early. So I just figured I'd not let them get too much draft on me, make my stop, kind of get a mental reset, and that's what ended up happening. Somehow it seemed like I gained a lot of pace on the guys I was racing after the pit stop. Not sure how that happened. Maybe the setup was just a little better with a heavier car. But yeah, I lost some time there, had to make it back. Carl, I know Carl was saving a lot of fuel. I don't know about the other guys, but I believe that's why Carl got so far ahead. I think he was 3 or something seconds ahead of the next guy in that field. So
We got a couple of weeks off now. I think the next race is at Spa in a few weeks' time, but nonetheless, we'll be back. We'll be heading over there. Plus, we'll be back to the free 20-minute races as well. So almost a change of mindset, really, to go from one of these races into back to the sprint race format.
yeah, absolutely. And after Imola, I'm not so sure I'm looking forward to it because this did go pretty well for me.
Oh yeah.
But, hey, it's all in good fun, and I think all of us are going to adjust our driving a little bit after what happened last week, so it should be fun.
Oh, great.
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, before we let you go, do you want to send a quick shout out on behalf of you and the Racecraft Esports team?
Yeah, shout out to everybody on the Racecraft Esports team. Shout out to Medi in particular who helped me with fuel today, and Marco for the hashtag Marco setup. He wasn't able to participate or do a whole lot in the week leading up, but we repurposed the setup that we use for pre-qualifying for the series. So thanks to him as well. And of course, thanks to you guys for the awesome broadcasts.
No worries, and yeah, well done on the podium today. Plus, of course, whatever position you were in at the 45-minute mark, 'cause I think points got handed out for that as well. So it might have done your championship quite a bit of good here today. So yeah, we'll see what that leads to, and yeah, all the best for Spa in a couple of weeks' time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Sam.
Brian Lockwood there, and wonder if we'll wait the arrival of anybody else. But Sam, your thoughts on the evening? Of course, these enduro races come along. They come along rather quickly. All of a sudden, we've done like 3 or 4 20-minute sprint races, and then we look at the calendar, and it's time for another enduro race. But yeah, what did you think today?
Yeah, it was absolutely terrific today, as it usually is in this series. And yeah, just a reminder to me how how competitive this is. Keith Camilleri, of course, came away with both of the race victories. That's going to be really good for him in the championship. Docker in second and Lockwood in third. And it's just so difficult to call who's going to be at the front in each of these rounds. And with everyone having such difficulties, I mean, we're at the We're over a third the way into the championship, maybe 40%. Six races completed out of 15, I believe. Do the maths. And we have no clue who's going to win this championship. And it's absolutely terrific. That's how it should be. All the drivers at the front are super close. And of course, we had battles all the way down the field as well today. That's that midfield tussle, particularly between drivers in about 7th and 12th places, was absolutely awesome to watch. And bring on the following weeks. Disappointed that this series isn't going to be on next week, but good that it's going to be on for pretty much the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be a shame. If any of the drivers in the championship are heading to the Sim Racing Expo next week, this week, do make sure you either look me up and see what I look like, and then come and say hi to me, or just say hi to me anyway. That came out.
It is weird seeing commentators' faces, I must say, because I mean, well, Adam, for example, with you, I mean, I expected you to look somewhat like yourself, but not 100%. But I mean, it's just really weird. I've watched a lot of commentaries on tennis and stuff. Haven't seen people's faces for 10 years. And you see it, and you're pretty astounded.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I do admit that Facebook profile picture may be a couple of years old. Yeah, I look something like that. I was in university at that point. But yeah, come and say hi to me if you do see me at the Sim Racing Expo. I'll be with most of the ERT team for that. I'll be tagging along with them. I think they have a few drivers like Jamie Fluke and all that in some of the Sim Racing Expo events. So I may be hanging around there. Yeah, my usual partner in crime, Andrew Woodhouse, isn't going to be here this year. So yeah, if I'm lonely at all, then yeah, you can see me there. But that's enough of my rambling, and I think we are out of time. So before we go tonight, a reminder to give this video a like if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. There's plenty more content too over on the Apex Racing TV YouTube channel. I think I'll give that a bit of a plug. So make sure head over there to see any of the other content that we've got. We do showcase some of it here on the iRacing Esports Network, and there is plenty more over there too. Myself and Sam will be back in a couple of weeks when the series reconvenes at Spa-Francorchamps for the latest instalment of the World GT Championship. That will be on air at 8:10 BST. So here we are then, the end of the second enduro race of the season. And a victory on the board for the KC Racing Esports team. A fantastic drive by Keith Camilleri. Pole position, fastest lap, and most importantly, the race win. We'll see if he can carry this form onwards to Spa in a couple of weeks' time. But for now, from me and from Sam, here at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza in the World GT Championship, it's bye for now.